Hey, this is Eric Gerritson coming to you from the studios of MGMWERX in Montgomery, Alabama. And this is Werx on the Web. Today, we're going to be talking to a friend of mine, Stephen Carter, the COO and the co-founder of a company called Traxyl. Very unique what they do. In fact, it's downright fascinating. And so I'd like to bring Stephen in on the show now. Stephen, are you there?
Hi, Eric. I'm here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, buddy. Thanks for coming on. So where are you located right now?
Currently, I'm sitting in Winchester, Virginia.
Winchester, Virginia. Boy, you got a lot going on in Virginia.
We do. We're about an hour west of Washington, D.C., and our company's headquartered in Warrenton, about 40 miles from me.
40 miles. So listen, how many, I know we had talked in the past. You have some kids. How many kids do you have?
I do, and it makes for an interesting time now, but I've got three, two girls, 5 and 6, and a boy, Thomas, turned 1 earlier this month.
Wow. So how has it been going with you doing the homeschooling during this time?
The teachers probably do a better job than I do, and God bless them for being there. But they've given us some tools and some stuff to do here at home to keep them busy. They stick with it for a little while.
Wow. That's a fun age, and I'm excited that you get to be home with them and that they get to be home with you. So of course I say that from 1,000 miles away. So there you go with that, buddy. So Stephen, what is Traxyl? What does Traxyl do? What are some of the problems you're trying to solve for the DoD?
Good question. So Traxyl, we're really a company that we've created an innovative way of installing high-speed broadband and data connectivity. We try to focus it in the hard to reach areas, and we essentially paint optical fibers onto the road surface.
Wow. That's amazing. So what made you or what made your team start doing this? What kind of problems did you identify where you like, hey, what's this painted on the road?
Yeah, so we're building these machines. We call them the fiber tracksters, and they lay out our product, the fiber tracks. And the problem that we're solving is really that, the surface of the road, the hard surfaces, the parking lots, the sidewalks, the roads, the drive aisles, they have a lot of existing utilities underground. They've got a lot of environmental rock, gas, water. They've also got, gas, water, sewage, electrical, mechanical lines underground. And so
Right.
When you're cutting into the surface, you really don't know what you're going to hit every time, even with all of the locating. So it takes a lot of time, effort, and a lot of expense and even some safety risk to do it. So we've eliminated all of that by, like I said, essentially painting fiber onto the surface of the road.
So you paint fiber onto the surface of the road. There was one time I used to work for the National Guard, and I worked infrastructure projects. And I remember talking about just the cost to do linear construction, just to dig ditches and to put lines and piping and so forth. That's so expensive. So are you talking about by laying it on top of the road, how much money do you think you're saving instead of putting it into the ground?
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, if you can imagine going a mile in any direction of where you are right now, doing the current traditional methods of trenching underground, the permitting, the designing, and then the careful excavation. We like to think of it. You're months into that process before you even get a chance to go and put the pipe in the ground and then pull the fiber through it. With fiber tracks, we're able to go out same day and do the installations. We're running at thousands of feet per hour, and we're looking to bring the cost down anywhere from 90% savings to 50% savings, depending on the environment around you.
Well, now I got to clarify, did you just say thousands of feet per hour?
Well, sure. So, it started out doing it by hand. We're using a prototype machine right now that'll go, in the range of about 250 to 500 feet per hour. So to clarify, we're doing our next machine. We're targeting 1,000 feet per hour.
Wow.
And then we think we'll be able to, really even go faster than that. Our end goal on our production machine will be about walking speed, which is thousands of feet per hour.
That's amazing. I think about, again, going back to my infrastructure days, the cost savings to a client, to a customer, and then if the DoD's doing it, the cost savings on infrastructure will be just tremendous and will just, draw businesses to you and want to use you. Are you the only one doing this kind of work?
So laying it on the surface of the road, we like to say we're painting it. We're really using durable bond coats over top of a low profile cable. So it's not a paint, it's a very durable solution that lays over top. And we are the only ones who are putting it out in this surface mounted way that we're aware of. We are aware of other surface mounted solutions where they have really scaled back some of the efforts because they weren't getting some of the durability and some of the materials that they were using. We do hold a patent, multiple patents on the process, on our machine. So we built up a bit of a portfolio of IP. So we are the only ones that we're aware of doing it commercially right now.
That's fantastic. Now, so as a potential customer, or as the potential customers that are out there, tell me about, because I'm a little concerned. We're talking about just a fiber optic cable, laying it on the road. How are you protecting that cable? I think of it being in like an M&M in a candy shell, but even that's not strong enough. So what have you developed that's strong enough to protect that fiber cable from heavy equipment, road usage, and so forth?
Yeah, great question, because you're right. When we first kind of thought of this idea, people were a little skeptical putting glass onto a road surface. So, it is fragile. People think about putting it underground, protecting it and conduit, using very durable cables with a lot of layers of protection around it. Right. And we're taking a different approach where we're coming from the top and we're essentially building that conduit on the fly. So we're using a very low profile cable that does have some steel armor wrapped around it. We're using a couple layers of protective coating. Both of them are commercially available, but we have tweaked them to our liking. So it gives a good combination of durability, which that top layer, the protective coating that we use, that is actually visible on the FiberTrax line, it's very hard. It's being used right now to stripe roads in very highly trafficked, very harsh conditioned areas, and they're getting many years of life out of it. So the other layer that we have, it allows for expansion and contraction in the road. So even though you have a lot of environmental conditions around it, you have a lot of heavy traffic, a lot of things pressuring down on top of it, it does provide extremely durable, long-lasting life.
Wow. All right, I got a couple questions out of all that. So we're not talking about speed bump size of elevation changes in the road when you lay down the Traxyl, right?
Right. So when FiberTrax is laid down, it essentially looks like a paint line on the road. You could think about it kind of when you go through crosswalks, they have what's called thermoplastic. It's a little bit thicker than your standard paint line. And so it looks like a paint line on the road, except we blend it into the road. So we can use black on asphalt. We can use a gray tint on a concrete or a sidewalk. We've used yellows and whites, and we can actually get any color pattern that anybody would like, as long as we have a Pantone to match.
That is amazing. So potentially in the very near future, when you get your new Trax machine, you're talking 1,000 feet an hour. You're talking about laying like paint, just like the guys driving down the road, striping a road, but instead you're going to have fiber optics inside of that paint, and you can actually use this in rural communities, couldn't you?
You could. That's really the way that we developed this was originally thought of for closing that digital divide. You think about the communities that don't have high-speed internet. They're really at a disadvantage. We think about that really comes to light right now with the COVID pandemic, people having to telework, a lot of places calling for telehealth, and students being able to do online work. We really wanted to solve that rural broadband problem. And so, while we were working on getting into rural communities, non-urban areas, we also see applications all throughout urban environments, and so much more.
Absolutely. So on the screen behind me, you can see the beautiful city of Montgomery, Alabama. And, Montgomery, Alabama is one of 5 cities that's been awarded actually twice, 2 big awards about being a smart city. And our previous mayor, Todd Strange, and our current mayor, it's simply amazing what they're accomplishing when it comes to smart cities. So you actually, with your equipment, could come in and you can enhance our smart city by just laying some fiber optics in the downtown areas where people are traversing, and helping us get high-speed internet and wireless to, we have over 400,000 people. Actually, we've increased by 400,000 people over 2018 who are coming to our city. So over 1 million people almost, you can help them have wireless while they go around our city and look at the great civil rights things and sporting events and so forth. This is absolutely phenomenal what you can do. But we really want to talk about what you can do for the DoD. So I know that you and I have talked about how you can help an installation. Can you go into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're thinking about it all the right ways that a city and a municipality think about it. And also, some of the conversations that we've had within the DoD and the military, it's FiberTrax is a solution that can integrate into the traditional methods. So if you're going to trench across a field and then you want to extend that connectivity across a parking lot or a drive aisle or a flight line for that matter, you don't have to trench or cut into that. You can just seamlessly integrate a FiberTrax link into those traditional methods. So we think about it as another tool in the tool bag, allowing the installer themselves to use our FiberTraxer machines and lay it down and put it and implement it into the network where it makes sense. So, for example, if you do have a base, or you've got a flight line, or you've got any other scenario where you want to extend communications for security cameras, for gate control, for just extending broadband into hard to reach areas, the most challenging places currently are where there's hard surfaces. If it's soil, it's easy enough to trench into, but if it's a hard surface like a concrete parking lot or an asphalt parking lot or a sidewalk, you have to trench into it and then you have to restore it. And so if we can put up any other sensors and make it a very quick, essentially on-demand solution for installing those other devices into the network, we're really enhancing what they could do with the base overall.
Okay, so back in 2001, during 9/11, I was actually at Prince Sultan Air Base in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And there was a huge perimeter on that installation. I mean, it was a gigantic base. And while I was there on that perimeter, there was several guard towers that we were manning. There wasn't any wireless. There wasn't, besides radio communication, there was nothing. Could you go to an installation like that? And in fact, could you put your Traxyl machine, your Trax machine, onto an aircraft, let's say a C-130, with all the equipment, and could it fly to a bare bones installation? And maybe by using, for those who may not know, rhino snot is something that is used to actually keep dust down. It's used in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it hardens on top of the surface. Could you actually put some rhino snot down and then lay Traxyl on top of that, and then have wire up all the different security posts or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I mean, we believe we can. While we'd like to, we certainly welcome testing those solutions and those applications. Any hard surface, and you're right, access to information and communications is one of the first things that you want to get down in an environment like that. So being able to go out, quickly deploy it. Our machine is about the size of a riding lawnmower, so it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. No bigger than a military Jeep. Really to go and drop it into an area quickly. We're building it so it's very intuitive for the installer to simply put out. It's basically a drive and ride type of machine. So any installer could go out, hook this up with around their base, connect those security outposts, and have communications up and running, thousands of feet per day.
Wow, that's amazing. Just to let you know, I know you're a young guy, but we don't have Jeeps anymore, pal. Just saying, we don't have Jeeps anymore. Anyway, so some other examples. We talked about bare bones bases. So let's talk about, I know we had a conversation recently that the Air Force and the training world is migrating to iPads, getting away from paper books and so forth, and migrating toward electronic devices for trainees, whether it be in basic training or in their technical school training, to have an iPad or some kind of device, Google Chromebook, whatever it may be.
Sure.
But the problem is that Air Force systems aren't built to support all this new communications equipment. Can you help those kind of places? Let's just say Keesler Air Force Base, where they have a lot of training that goes on there. Could you help a base like Keesler Air Force Base by running fiber tracks at their installation?
Absolutely. And, while we haven't run it on a military base right now, a similar example is that we have installed it at school systems. So they actually expanded from their school where they had fiber out to their stadium complex. Now they had different outbuildings. They had multiple media booths. They had ticket booths, concession stands. They had, Wi-Fi connectivity throughout that area where they were able to expand the connectivity on a campus, similar to a base situation, where they could get internet where they currently didn't have, where they traditionally didn't have it. So being able to transition from a school campus to a military base is very simple. I mean, it's using the same infrastructure. It's the same fiber connectivity. It's doing a lot of the same things that we're already doing in a base environment. So,
Wow.
we definitely believe that being able to get, whether it's a wireless antenna or we're actually putting hard connections into different places, extending the reach of your existing connectivity is one of the plans for fiber tracks.
Wow. And when you talked about stadiums, that just got me thinking so much about how many devices, when there's a sporting event or some kind of event going on, how many devices are trying to get wireless, whatever it may be. But if you can run fiber tracks into a stadium, that could help alleviate some of the load of what people are trying to use at that time too. So absolutely fascinating. Now, near and dear, obviously, because we are MGMWERX and we do work for the Air Force and Air University, obviously aircraft are a big important thing to what we do. And so you and I had a discussion in the past about running fiber tracks on airfields, because I know that on an airfield, here's an example. Recently, actually a month and a half ago, MGMWERX was part of Mercury. Mercury was a automated weapons loading checklist that was designed by Bespin, and the idea came out of Spangdahlem Air Base in Germany. They came to MGMWERX. We helped them prototype it, and voila, it won Spark Tank 2020. Actually, it tied Spark Tank 2020. And so on the screen right now is an example of that checklist running through. And with that checklist, you can save up to 36% of loading time by using an automated checklist compared to what they're using currently. However, the problem is that if it's going to be wireless, airfields in the Air Force aren't very friendly toward wireless for one reason or another. Could Traxyl help alleviate that problem by running fiber tracks to different aircraft sites where they can get wireless?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned wireless a couple of times, and there's a bit of a misnomer sometimes about wireless. Yes, it broadcasts a wireless signal to your handheld device of some type. It takes a lot of fiber to backhaul that data from the antenna to the network that it's servicing. So, for example, if you're going to put a 5G antenna out, a lot of talk around 5G and being able to get them out around different bases, around different cities, they all require fiber network to backhaul that data. So being able to quickly get that out in an area and set up a 5G antenna or any other wireless device, it's still the same fiber that you're using, the same connectors on the end, the same hardware, the same fiber that you're used to. So it'll connect it to a traditional network with no problem. And being able to get flight line connectivity, base connectivity for any sort of maintenance that's happening on the aircraft, any sort of tablet and Mercury type using, it could absolutely make that process more efficient and safer.
Wow. Well, I know that this is an exciting concept for those in the maintenance world as the Air Force continues to innovate and create new maintenance programs that are smaller and more agile, able to go out with the maintenance teams as they work on aircraft. This is exciting stuff. So let me ask you, is there or are there other uses for Traxyl that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, so I mean, aside from just being able to get broadband, high-speed internet from place to place, you can think about it in IoT and the sensor world, where it can help with connecting the devices back to that network. We talked a little bit about some of the security cameras or gate control, or even just simple monitoring of fuel stations or HVAC systems.
Right.
We think that anything on, near, and around the road will be very useful for enhancing the efficiencies around a base. Some of the more unique applications are what's called optical sensing. And it's really where, if you have the right electronics on the endpoints of a fiber, that fiber in effect turns itself into a microphone, and it enhances the vibrations nearby. So if you think about having it around a base, some of those outposts that you were talking about earlier, it could actually sense when a vehicle approaches those gates or those fence lines, or when a pedestrian's walking nearby. It could actually pick up on that data and kind of put a fingerprint on it, so that it can translate that information back into to what it's perceived to be. Other applications might be gunshot detection, or even aircraft aerially or overhead. It could pick up on those induced vibrations as well.
Wow, this is fascinating. And the unfortunate thing, the reality that we're in right now is COVID-19. What could Traxyl do for COVID-19? Everybody's looking for innovative ideas, answers, but they need it quickly. What could Traxyl do in the COVID-19 crisis?
Sure. So for the COVID crisis, you're right. We're all living it right now. Some of the immediate things to help with relief and response is anything that's an emergency shelter, quarantine zone, medical facility that needs infrastructure, communication run to it. We can install very quickly. I mean, same day operations on demand. There's no other solution like it for putting out a fiber line between buildings and locations. So on demand fiber installation for quarantine zones or hospitals, relief tents, new facilities that are even being turned into field hospitals. We also think about it from the civilian and commercial world, where if you want to telework or you want to talk to your doctor remotely. If you just want to kill time by watching Netflix or any other streaming service, you can't really do that without a high-speed data connection. And so I think it's just really brought it to light a lot more in this this time that we're in, how big of a digital divide exists in the world. And so try and be able to help out the communities for their stay-at-home efforts, but also mainly our focus is to support the U.S. Air Force, the Corps of Engineers, whoever it may be, in setting up these emergency response locations.
Yeah, I see so many applications, and I think a lot of other people see a lot of applications too. So let's transition a little bit into funding. Let's transition into the Small Business Innovative Research Program, SBIR, or into some of the other funding mechanisms and awards that you have won. Can you talk about that?
Sure can. So, we have been fortunate in that we haven't had to raise investor money. There was times that we would start, especially when we were early on, very early in this development, when we would talk to investors and we would put that conversation on pause, invest a little bit more of our own money. We would pick up that conversation again. And all along, we want to have that traditional route available. But the government has actually been very supportive in what we're doing. So our original, I call it our first, major turning point was around an NSF, a National Science Foundation SBIR grant. Right. It did take us 3 tries, but on the third time's the charm, and we received that. It was a durability study that we worked with a laboratory to do some comparative analysis studies. So that really helped. We also recently won a contract with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're building and demonstrating a proof of concept machine for their uses. And then most recently, we've won a small SBIR contract, phase 1, with the U.S. Air Force to help find customers within that within the Air Force who are communication squadrons. They are flight line mechanics. Whoever it may be that is really focused on getting connectivity on, near, and around bases, flight lines, and the such. So, and I'll touch briefly on one other award that we won. It was at a satellite conference where there was a lot of small technologies small businesses pitching a technology around satellite and space infrastructure and how that could really affect the space race per se. And Traxyl actually walked away with the first prize, the top award at that satellite conference, just because of the terrestrial infrastructure need and being able to be very agile, versatile, and being able to put fiber into places that still are able to receive the communication from space. So, even though a lot of people are focused on aerial technology, having something on the ground is always going to be important.
Well, as DARPA has their challenge, and their challenge came to an end, but the fact is they're out there contracting with companies, or trying to find companies that can actually they tell them a location, they can get the spacecraft there, and they can launch it within a day or so. If having something like Traxyl, where you can actually run some infrastructure, some fiber infrastructure to that site in a very rapid way, that could be game changing in our ability to launch and stay ahead of the Chinese and others as they go into space. So phenomenal stuff. Absolutely great. And this is so great when we're talking about SBIR and about the awards you've won. But as we begin to wrap this up, I have a question for you. If I were to meet somebody and want to spend time with them and tell them about what I'm doing, it would be this guy right here, Mike Rowe. People are like, don't you want to meet Jesus? Well, I'm going to meet Jesus one day, but I want to meet Mike Rowe right now. This guy's phenomenal to me because he represents everything I want to be when it comes to innovation, when it comes to collaborating with people, when it comes to being able to share ideas. And his network is so dynamic. I just really like Mike Rowe. Who would you want to meet? If you had a secret, Traxyl, who would you want to tell?
Wow. Well, being DoD and military focused for what we're trying to do, I mean, there are so many forward-thinking squadrons, departments, and efforts within the whole military as a whole that it's really hard to nail down a single one. We do think that, within the Air Force, we've heard these terms thrown around, cable dogs. And, it's the folks on the ground who are really running around these bases, who are trying to get the infrastructure out. They're carrying around heavy loads. They are working in hot environments, cold environments. They are really putting out the effort to make sure that access to communication happens quickly, and that they are putting their lives on the line to try to make that happen for everyone else. So anyone who can support the cable dogs, in my opinion, is really someone that can advance our effort. I know that there's a lot of C3I and N divisions. There's a lot of communication squadrons. There's a cyberspace engineering group. There are a lot of, like I just said, a lot of people who are working to make this happen as far as communication, access to information, warfighter efforts. Right. And anyone who can support that effort is someone we'd like to speak with.
Sure. I could think of a couple others perhaps you haven't said directly. The civil engineering folks, absolutely. The security forces folks, you've talked cyber on there too. But I think there's many others that it could be very beneficial for. So listen, Stephen, I think what you have and what you guys are doing is absolutely amazing to me. I'm excited to talk to you because I'm like, man, this is just cutting edge, change the world kind of stuff. Even going into a third world, going into a bare bones space, going into an inner city, going into rural area, it doesn't matter. You guys can take your little machine and you can make it happen. You can change lives of everybody at the other end. And I just think that's fantastic. So, Stephen, I really appreciate you spending time with me today. I appreciate all that you're doing for the commercial world, that you're trying to do for the DoD. And I'd like to give you one more opportunity. Is there anything else you want to close with before I close out the show?
Eric, we haven't spoken for too terribly long, but you're naming all of the right applications. I mean, there's so many environments that we can install this. There's so many people who need it. This time that we're experiencing is really something that brings to light that situation even more. I guess the last thing I'd say is that we're trying to make this accessible for everyone. We are a small company. We're still in somewhat of a startup phase and a startup mode. And the way that we're approaching this is that we want to build these machines and we want to get them into the hands of installers, whether you're on a base or on a school campus, it doesn't matter. We want to be able to put another tool in your tool bag. So, you don't have to call me out. You don't have to call anyone else in our office out to actually do the installations for you. We want to enable your team to do it. The ones who are out there making the connectivity happen every day. So you can get the machines from us, you can get the fiber, you can get the protective coatings from us, and we can give you quick training to get it done. Essentially putting another tool in the tool bag for the installers.
You're teaching a man to fish. We're going to change the world with this. I shouldn't say we're. You're going to change the world with this. Stephen, it's been such a pleasure to have you spend time with Werx On The Web. And I'd like to just say good luck to you. And if there's anything else I can do for you, you obviously have my number. You've got my email. Let's continue to communicate. And with that said, I'd like to thank my producer, Becky, my director, Joshua. And again, my name is Eric Gerritson, and this has been Werx On The Web from MGMWERX. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot, Eric. We appreciate everything that MGMWERX does for us. We couldn't do it without you. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, buddy.